Good afternoon. How is everyone doing? Welcome to our first podcast of
All
All
things
Things Bloom.
bloom.
And we are super excited about being here today. We are super excited about this podcast and the ability that we're going to get to share with everyone around the world about this work that we do. So, really quickly, I want to put the disclaimer out today that some of the things that we are going to discuss, they are going to be sensitive. We are talking about human trafficking. We are talking about sexual exploitation. So we want parents to pay attention. We want you to just be sensitive if there are any little ears that are in the background. And we also want to say that as we are talking, if you or someone you know is experiencing human trafficking or sexual exploitation, even while this podcast is going on, please pick up the phone and call the National Trafficking Hotline at 1-888 373 7888 or call us at Bloom for Women 484-268-8581. And so today our mission is um, to extend our outreach, and our outreach program here at Bloom is called Bloom Beyond the Walls, and our mission is to improve safety and wellness in the Lehigh Valley and Northampton counties through community education and prevention services, along with outreach and advocacy that leads to restoration. And so I want to introduce myself. I said all of that and have not introduced myself. I am Sheniqua Mitchell. I am the outreach manager here at Bloom for Women, and I have a beautiful co-host, and I will allow her to introduce herself.
Hi, my name is Rebekah Frischman, and I am the store manager at our social enterprise of My Sister's Closet.
Awesome, awesome, and we have another beautiful co-host who will be joining us soon. But we want to talk today about a serious topic, which is sex trafficking. We know that human trafficking is a thing that encompasses a lot of different uh, avenues to where humans are trafficked, but our sector is sex trafficking. So, Becca, real quick before I get into a technical definition, what have you learned, or what do you understand human trafficking to be?
I understand human trafficking to be an individual, it could be male or female, that they are forced into doing things like sexual acts
Mhm.
for others, sometimes in return for basic necessities, like that is housing, food, a safe place for them, or they claim it to be a safe place. But in exchange for these sexual acts and it not even really being an option for them,
Mhm, mhm.
but it's just doing it strictly out of fear at this point.
I agree. I agree. I'm going to give the technical definition for sex trafficking. And so, sex trafficking, according to the National Trafficking website, is the recruitment, transportation, provision, or obtaining of a person for the purpose of a commercial sex act, such as induced by force, fraud, or coercion, in which the person that is forced to do the sex act is not 18 years old, and that's in cases of child sex trafficking. Normally the acronym will be CSEC, which is CSEC, and that stands for commercial child sex trafficking. And when you look at when a person is over 18, it is still the same force, fraud, or coercion. The only thing is, according to Homeland Security, a person that is under 18 cannot consent to sex. So they don't have to prove in a court of law that there was any force, fraud, or coercion, whereas a person that is over 18 who has experienced sex trafficking has to prove the one. And I love what you said, Becca, because um, we have the technical meaning, but the everyday meaning would be someone being forced into doing acts that are shameful,
Mm-hmm.
acts that are demeaning, so that they can have a need. And that's one of the things about human trafficking. And we're talking about human trafficking here in the Lehigh Valley and what it looks like. But generally, when you look at human trafficking, it is born out of some sort of need. And typically, what we see traffickers doing is playing on that need and manipulating that need. The other part about human trafficking in a technical sense is it's about power and ownership over another human being, treating that person as a commodity for personal gain, whether it's financial or material or for sadistic pleasure. And what we're talking about is slavery.
Mm-hmm.
What we're talking about is slavery. I wanted to ask you this question because we have a very diverse culture
Mm-hmm.
here at Bloom in this sex trafficking world, and many of those of us who work at Bloom, we have lived experiences. But I know for you, you're not really connected to that life, but you live here in the Lehigh Valley.
Mm-hmm.
So working here, what has it been like for you in that understanding of human trafficking, and how have you been impacted just by working here and kind of having to immerse yourself
Mm-hmm.
in this culture?
So I always knew that trafficking was a problem worldwide. I never quite realized how in depth it was for the Lehigh Valley.
Mhm.
But finding out about this position and everything else, I just knew it was something I wanted to do. I've always had this desire to help people, and I knew it wouldn't be the medical field, but I knew it had to be somewhere because it's something I always wanted to do. But
Yeah.
being at Bloom and hearing these stories from our survivors and everything else, it's really sad to hear it sometimes, but it's definitely fuel to the fire of like, what can I do to help and
Yeah.
how can we raise awareness? And it is such an empowering job too to just help those in need and just continue on helping them get like jobs and reunite with their families and just be able to conquer the world, really.
Absolutely. I love what you said. I am one of the people at Bloom who does have lived experiences, but I think um, as a survivor, when you're in your situation, you think it's just you and where you are. And I love that term that you use, that it's a global issue.
Mm-hmm.
And when we look at sex trafficking, even though it's happening right here in the Lehigh Valley, we're talking about a global system of exploitation. Sex trafficking, most people, and even especially here in the Lehigh Valley, they'll see a woman who might happen to be a prostitute, or they see a woman who might be a stripper, and the idea is this is what they want, this
Mm-hmm.
is what they're choosing for themselves, but that is not the reality.
Yeah.
Most women, men or boys, they may be choosing survival. So if
Mm-hmm.
they're not in a situation where they are experiencing force, fraud, or coercion, then they may be engaging in self trafficking because they are choosing survival. And when we talk about not having options, we know that the economy is bad. We
Yeah.
know that there aren't a lot of resources. Housing is an issue here in the Lehigh Valley. Food disparities
Yeah.
are an issue here in the Lehigh Valley. And so when we look at what trafficking looks like, it's not just the force or coercion part of it, but as we hear here at Bloom, every story has its individual pieces, and one of those things are choosing survival. And the thing about what makes trafficking so um, easy to do here in the Lehigh Valley is not only is there a need,
Mm-hmm.
not only is there this force, fraud, and coercion, but we have the means to do it.
Yeah.
And the means to do it, it has to do everything with geographics. And most people will look and say, well, this is a city and this is a nice place. I'm from New York.
Yeah.
You would never think that moving here 9 years ago, that we would find that trafficking was such a big thing here. So, in your take geographically, what would you say uh, makes us so much more susceptible to trafficking?
Um, I feel like our area, it's like a very um in and out kind of city, if that
Hmm.
makes sense,
Yeah,
in a
yeah.
sense that you are able to um, get on 22 to 33 to 78, no problems. You
Hmm.
can cross borders in a matter of minutes to like an hour or
Yeah.
two. it makes it so easy for a quick getaway without ever
Absolutely.
anyone ever like noticing.
I agree. I agree. We definitely are one of those hotspots. We're considered a hotspot. And statistically, as of 2023, Pennsylvania is number 8.
Yeah. Number 8.
It is number 8 in the country.
Mhm.
I have to say that again because that is a staggering number. We are number 8 in the country for human trafficking. I think prior to 2023, we were number 10. And there was one at one point in the United States, the United States of America was number 1 at one point for human trafficking. And I agree with you. All of those different highways and those different ways in or out, they make us more susceptible. You can travel from New York all the way up to Florida, depending upon the highway that you are taking here. So Lehigh Valley makes it easy to do it in plain sight, and it also
Mhm.
makes it easy to kind of hide in plain sight. When we talk about sex trafficking, right? We're talking about people that don't have choices. We're talking about fraud, force, and coercion. But I want to talk about a little bit kind of the facts, some of the other facts that survive human trafficking. um, we find here in the Lehigh Valley, unfortunately, and I would say maybe this is even globally, according to the national trafficking website, the average age for a young lady to begin prostitution is 12 to 14 years old.
Mhm.
Way too young. At that point, what were we doing at 12 or, at 14 years old? Usually, most young people are in the place of self discovery. They're finding their social networks, they're figuring out, they're dreaming about what they want to do in their life. But an overwhelming number of young ladies are going into prostitution at 12 to 14, and others are more susceptible because they have been exposed to abuse
Yeah.
as a child. And so when we're looking at this in the Lehigh Valley, I think what we have to begin to do is to see people as people. I
Mhm.
think a lot of times we see the symptom is the trafficking, right? Or
Mhm.
the symptom might be the prostitute, or the symptom may be the person that is stripping, but we're dealing with a person that may have been through many things
Yeah.
before they arrived at this point. So, with that, what would you say um, that is your view on what's being done to combat trafficking in Lehigh Valley? What are your thoughts there?
Um Well, I know that we have a lot of law enforcement people on our side. They're looking out for these individuals and they're trying to, I believe, like training and
Mhm.
everything else, that it's more of a I'm here to help instead of I'm here to get you kind
Yeah,
of a more of
absolutely.
a feel. So it's not like they feel like they're going to be in worse trouble than
Mhm.
what they are in their current situation. That is having healthcare workers really being informed on how to interact with these
Yeah.
survivors and the proper care that they're going to need and everything else. And then I feel like our community as a whole, like I was driving on 33 the other day and there was a big sign on the back of a tractor trailer that said Truckers Against Trafficking.
Oh, I
Here's a
love
national hotline
that.
number. And I was
That's
like,
so good.
yeah, so it's really um it's just rewarding to see that. And I'm
That's
like,
amazing.
people are finally starting to wake up and be like, oh, this is an issue and we can
Yeah.
do this. But airports, I've been seeing the national hotline for trafficking and
Mhm.
everything else. So I feel like people are finally getting the training and the resources that they need to call and
Mhm.
help these women or men and making an impact.
That is so good. And I love the fact that you saw a trucker's truck have that on the back of it, because one of the places that people are trafficked out frequently are truck stops.
Yeah.
Truck stops are a place where women, men, boys are often purchased, often abused, and
Mhm.
unfortunately sometimes left for dead or left destitute. So I love that truckers are starting to come on board. One of the things that I love that I have been seeing, and as an outreach manager here, I've been endeavoring to do is to reach out to places like churches.
Mhm.
I think oftentimes we deal with scandal when it comes. And I think oftentimes, sometimes the churches are one place where they don't want to have those conversations. But as of recently, it has been an overwhelming number of pastors and those sort of faith based leaders that we're coming in contact with that want to have the
Mhm.
conversation. And so we're finding now that because we're bringing this conversation and this awareness of what is actually happening in Lehigh Valley, that pastors that are here, they have had experiences
Mhm.
with people in their churches. They've had their own experience with child abuse and sexual exploitation. So now that furthers the conversation,
Mhm.
so that it, because there's an awareness in the congregations, so if someone sees something, they can say something about it, or people may be more willing to have the conversation because now their clergy person,
Yeah.
their person of influence, is willing to have the conversation and raise the awareness. And one of the things I have to say that I love about being in Lehigh Valley, we have organizations like LVAT, we had organizations like VAS, we have preventative measures, we have Homeland Security, we
Mhm.
have the St. Luke's Network and the Lehigh Valley Network of Hospitals. We are like in all of these places, kind of like a tiny army in
Yeah.
all of these places. But I love that one thing we do here is have the conversations. And I love that it's not just human trafficking organizations. So if you really want to learn what's happening in the Lehigh Valley, I think the important part is to, yes, be a part of the conversation and awareness, but we have multidisciplinary teams that we are a part of that meet. There are these wellness organizations and things like that that allow us to go and to share information.
Mhm.
So I love that our voice in Lehigh Valley against trafficking is starting to become louder.
Say it's loud.
Yeah,
Saying loud
it's
now.
saying it loud. And one of the things that our CEO says all the time is not on our watch, not on our watch. And I think as we continue to share in Lehigh Valley and we develop this attitude of not on my watch, that more people are going to kind of catch fire. So it's almost like it's a flicker now. And
Mhm.
we hope for this like consuming flame to come where people get upset and get a righteous indignation
Mhm.
about this, because the thing about sex trafficking is it knows no socioeconomic background, it knows no skin tone.
Mhm.
It is a vicious, terrible evil that consumes any and everything that it's in its path. Let me ask you this: what do you feel like is not being done that we could do more of in the Lehigh Valley for sex trafficking?
Mm.
That's a difficult one.
Yeah.
You know why sometimes that could be difficult? Because there's a lot that's being done. But I'm going to say this: I think in legislation,
Mm. That's a great answer.
it's a big area where we do have um, some of our legislators listening.
Mhm.
I do believe they understand that it's a problem, but I think stricter laws have to happen. Many of our survivors here in the Lehigh Valley, they are re-exploited through the
Mhm.
court system
Yeah.
by their traffickers. Some women have children by their traffickers. Some people have other things that are going on, and sometimes traffickers use the court system to re-exploit. So I think it needs to be tougher laws on there. I also think there needs to be more laws that afford our women to work. Once
Mhm.
we get our women to come out of trafficking, then they're dealing with charges that they have on their record
Mhm.
from trafficking that are difficult to have expunged
Yeah.
or difficult to have removed. So if it goes back to that need again. So if I have a need and I can't meet it and I'm willing to work, but I can't get a job, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to what I know,
Yeah.
which might be self trafficking, or it might be me leaning into someone who says that this is what pimps do.
Yeah.
They say that they're going to, provide and take care. So our
Mhm.
women will lead more into that. So there needs to be greater legislation, there needs to be greater policy, and there needs to be funding.
Yeah.
One of the things that we struggle with in Lehigh Valley is housing. We can get law enforcement at Homeland Security to go in and kick down the door, and boom, we'll show up to support. But what is happening after? And so, one of the things that is so essential for us in the Lehigh Valley is resources for aftercare,
Yeah.
so that people can get the counseling that they need, so people can get the mental health services, the medical services. One thing we see in the Lehigh Valley are women, they're coming out, they're malnourished, they have health issues, they have mental health issues. There's a variety of different things. And it's great that we have a lot of heart to do this work, but we need money. It takes funding to do this. And I often say this, and I said this yesterday, and I may even get in trouble for what I'm about to say, but I think that some of our women, those are the real MVPs. They are the superstars to survive and to overcome. And if we can pay baseball players and basketball players and
Mhm.
these people hundreds of millions of dollars, I know that we can find funding to help people who have been buried in darkness to climb out and to be able to breathe again.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen,
And,
sister.
even if it's in the way of entrepreneurship, whatever that looks like. So I think in the Lehigh Valley, we know that this issue of trafficking exists. We know that there's a lot of work to be done, but teamwork makes the dream work.
And having grace in these situations,
I love that.
not viewing them as this person that is doing these deeds that, but changing the mindset that they are in survival mode.
Absolutely.
And if that was your daughter or your friend or
Yeah.
your niece or your cousin, like you would want to do everything in your power to
Absolutely.
help them.
Absolutely. I agree with that. And I think because we know it's a problem in Lehigh Valley, it doesn't have to reach our door. But I love that what we do for someone else can very well save our children. We do know that someone, you don't have to leave your home to be sexually exploited.
Yeah,
You do not have to leave your home to be trafficked.
can
You
be
can
done
be
online.
you can do it all online. And even as of late, with all of the new technology, traffickers run the ring through encrypted apps on the telephone, and that is everything from organizing the payments, to arranging the rides, to arranging the meeting places. And so there is an absolute lot that we can do. What would you say that the outer community can do to get involved? Because I find that as I talk to people doing outreach, people want to get involved, but they just don't know how. So, what would you say, Becca, from your perspective?
So as I said earlier, I manage the social enterprise that we have, my sister's closet. This is something that is like a little smaller, but it still makes a really big impact, and that is donating your very lightly used clothing, accessories, and jewelry to the
Mhm.
closet, because every single dollar that we make out from
Yes.
those donated items, it does 100% go back to our five safe homes.
Mhm.
I always say in general, you can always donate. I think we need every single penny
Yeah,
to fight this. And two, just raising awareness.
absolutely.
Always. We have brochures at the store. Grab a handful. We have plenty more to give.
Hmm.
Invite us to your brunch, your book clubs, or churches, or women's group, or anything. And we love hosting a pop up shop so we could show you what we have at the closet, and then we can also do like a speaking event just to
Hmm.
show the numbers and share everything that we are up against and how you
Absolutely.
can join us. But I feel like there's so many different ways, but what
Yeah.
are some ways that you believe that would help?
I think volunteer work is so pivotal. Um, Sometimes it's not, even if it's the part where you don't know what to say and how to raise the awareness. Our ladies need hugs.
Yeah,
They need listening ears. They
they
need
need.
people to tell them it's going to be okay. They need people to say, "I see you, and you're doing an amazing job." Outreach. We endeavor to go into the encampments. We go into the inner city of Allentown and we
Mhm.
serve the people of Allentown. We partner with St. Luke's Parish Nurses, and we do the Loads of Blessing laundry ministry. So there are people who are they're in addiction, there are children, there are struggling parents, and so this type of work requires all boots on the ground, and it requires hands on deck, and it requires a willingness to serve wherever wherever it is that you can serve.
If that is, talking,
Yes,
mentoring,
yes,
cooking,
yes,
driving,
yes.
school supplies for
School supply.
your
Yeah, yeah,
clothing, food,
yeah.
baby stuff, everyone.
Um,
It could be as little or as big as I
yeah.
think people don't even realize.
Yeah, I love that. And the other thing that we need it with the donations, we need the financial backing.
Yeah.
We need the financial support. And as Becca shared, all of the money that comes into Bloom, it goes back into the community. It goes back into the survivor. We don't use donor dollars to go on vacation. We don't use donor dollars to do all those things, but every penny that we get, we pour back into our survivors. So that's rides to doctor's appointments. So for some of our transitional clients, sometimes that's groceries. Sometimes it is medical things. There are a myriad of ways that you can help. And I'm going to say, yes, we need your money, but we need you to show up, and we
Mhm.
need you. We need people to be willing to have that uncomfortable conversation and to be willing to be numbered. We seem like the minority, but there's an overwhelming majority of people that, as they learn and they become aware, their mindset becomes not on my watch. And
Mhm.
so we're getting ready to close our podcast for today, but we want to continue to have the conversation. We will be coming back monthly. We will be coming back with different guests, different community partners, different employees from Bloom.
Mhm.
Our CEO will have a corner where she comes and speak. Hopefully we can get some of our board members, but this is just the beginning of the conversation, because we are dealing with a global issue. What we do here in Lehigh Valley, it's important to the world.
Yeah.
It's important to the little girl we'll never see. It's important to the little boy that we will never meet. It's important to overturn even some generational things with regard to trafficking. So I just want to give Becca the opportunity to offer a last thought, if anything.
You did mention early on that you do have lived experience
Yes.
through all this, and one question that I have is, what or why is the reason why you decided to join Bloom, and
Yeah.
how has your experience been with us so
Okay.
far?
So I really quickly I have had the most, and I will try not to cry. I have had the most amazing experience
Mhm.
being here at Bloom. I was a student at Walden University, and I needed to do an internship, and I was struggling to find an internship, and it was at the last minute that someone I affectionately called the little one responded to me. She responded to me, and I thought I was just getting an internship, but it was much more than that, because I had lived experiences. Um, was very much driven to help and serve people. But what I did not know, but there were some places that I still needed to be healed. And so not only did I find a place for an internship, but I found a place to say me too without judgment. And I found a world of people that are not just existing and oblivious to the hurt and the pain that other people are going
Mhm.
through, but I found a community of people that care and that love and that help. And Bloom is not just a residential program. It's not just a social enterprise, but it's really a community. It's really a place of safety. And so I went through the internship, and in January I came on permanently. And I really believe that I walked into my purpose. I really believe that everything that I went through with all of my lived experience, it was for this moment, so that I could not only partner and be a voice for Bloom, but I can be a radical advocate. I can go out and get those that are lost, because there are people out there that are dying. And so I feel so blessed. I feel so fortunate that I get to do this every day. And some days are a lot, but there's nothing I would do to change. I would never go back from anything that I experienced, because it allowed me to be sitting here. And so I am excited that I get to partner and grow with Bloom. I love coming to work every day. I'm serious. I love how we work together, and I even just love the diversity and the culture of inclusion that we have here. So when you are partnering with Bloom, you are partnering with a lot. You are causing a lot to grow. You are sowing seeds that are going to come back, and it's going to reap a harvest, to make someone's life fruitful. So we thank you for being with us today. We thank you for listening. And again, we say that if you are struggling, and you are or you or someone you know is experiencing human trafficking, thank you, Becca, for handing me the number here. You want to call the National Trafficking Hotline. It is 1-888-373-7888. Or you can call our intake line, which we are Bloom for Women, and our number is 484-268-8581, and we will assist you in any way we can. So we thank you for tuning into All Things Bloom. See you next time.
See ya.